Hey guys, what is going on? This is Kootra here, and welcome to another UDK Machinima tutorial about building sets. And before I get started, I want to point out that if you want to follow along or you're curious and you want to see what this is all about and you want to make Machinima with UDK, I suggest you click on the playlist in the description and watch it from the very beginning. It'll tell you to go and download UDK from the site, and it's free and you can mess around with it and do a ton of stuff. It's awesome. So that's pretty much it. Go back to the beginning video. I'll explain everything from there. So right now what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up a basic level or set in UDK for filming your machinima. And what's great about this is we can make any kind of set that we want, and it doesn't really have to be game efficient, so we can cut a ton of corners, and it makes it so much easier. So pretty much anything that I do in this, I'm not really going to be explaining too well. I just want you guys to follow along and just pretty much mimic what I do. And if you think you can do something on your own and you want to go and add a couple more static meshes here and there to make your level different, feel free to do that. Pause the video to catch up. Make sure you post comments in the comment section or questions in the comment section, sorry, and I'll make sure to get around to them and definitely answer whatever you have to say. And pretty much anything that isn't explained in this video, I'm going to be making a separate little video for it. All this is really is showing you guys the basic idea. So once I get all the other videos out, there's probably going to be another 20 of them, just little small mini episodes. You can come back to this video and reference it for building the map. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to be pointing out BSP geometry because this is you come into the map right now and you see this little brush here, and I'm just going to be telling you guys how to build a simple room right away, and then we'll end the video and go from there. So what we have here is the builder brush, and we can use what's called geometry mode to manipulate it right here. And this is good, but it's really not necessary right away. So I will be explaining that later. What we can do is go back to camera mode. And what I always like to do, since most of my models don't have collision and I want a big slab of something to walk on, I'll go into ununiform scaling mode, and we're just going to make a big, huge slab on the floor. So we'll just stretch it out in each axis, nice and big. Actually minimize this to make it a little smaller height-wise. Okay, so there we go. We have our huge slab. And what we need to do to create the geometry that we can walk on is we need to use this template right here that we just created to add something. So it's pretty much like making like a little invisible thing that will tell something to add geometry there. So what we do now is we'll hit the CSG add button, and what that does is it adds the geometry to the map. And what it doesn't actually replace the builder brush, because right here we still have the builder brush as a template we can use again if we slide over here. What it does is it creates a brush, an additive brush right here. And as you can see, if you go into brush wireframe mode, you can see this brush. The red brush is the builder brush, which you can use, and then the blue brush is actually an additive brush. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to manipulate different features of the brush. So if you wanted to, you can hit subtractive brush right here, and it will, if we go over here and hit subtract, it builds a yellow brush, which is a subtractive brush obviously, and that actually subtracts from the initial additive brush. And if you want to change the order, it's not a huge deal. I'm just going to go over it really quickly, but if you want to change the order of how this is built, like if you want to have the subtractive brush last and you accidentally placed it first or something, you go to the brushes, and if you right click on it, it'll give you an option for order, and you can switch it from first to last. So let's say we have this out of order and that it's first, and we always have to rebuild the geometry when you're working with BSP. And as you can see there, it built it. Even though the subtractive brush is there, it actually calculates the subtraction first and then the addition. So if you have another subtractive brush that goes right here, like I have it, well, that's actually to last. That subtractive brush I just built is last. Whoops, I'll move that out of the way. So if we go into brush wireframe, you can see there's a subtractive brush here that's last. Even though this one's first, it's not going to do anything unless there's something there to subtract from. That's pretty much useless right there. So I'll just take those out for now. That's pretty much how CSG works as far as additive and subtractive. And a lot of the older versions of UDK will actually give you the option. I might have actually turned it off in this one, so I don't know, but because I never use it, because I always use an additive level. But additive and subtractive levels are different in that Additive levels is just completely blank like you see here, and there's no CSG involved. All you have to do is add on what you want. In a subtractive level, you have to use the subtractive brush to take out chunks of a big piece of CSG. So you're actually working with a big chunk of something that you're pretty much, you're tunneling through it with subtractive brushes. So additive is a whole lot easier, especially for Machinima. It's just really simple. And what we can do now is, I'll just go to unlit first, and as you can see, even though I deleted the subtractive brushes, they're not actually calculated yet, so I have to rebuild the geometry in order to see it actually calculated. So there we go, we have our piece of geometry on the floor there, and this will be our floor. And even if I play it, it's gonna be pitch black because I still haven't added lighting. That's why we're working in unlit mode. So what we can do now is I'm gonna build the other sides of this room. It's just going to be a real simple room for now, don't worry about it. And what we can do is, if you grab the actual additive brush and you hold Alt and drag, you can duplicate it and drag it up. There we go, you got a ceiling. And if we hold Alt drag and it drags again, just click and drag with your mouse, and that creates a wall. So we'll rotate that and randomly add it somewhere in here. Always use the orthographic viewports when you're dealing with CSG. It's very important to line stuff up when you're building a game. Not so much in Machinima though. That's why I like it. You don't have to go through all these painstaking steps to get everything perfect. You can cut a lot of corners, getting it, looking decent from what camera angles you're using. So that's probably one of the best things about using UDK for Machinima, is you don't have to worry about efficiency for playing a game with it. So there we go, we just dragged that across, as you can see, and built another wall. I'll drag it in the middle again, actually rotate it another on the on the Z-axis, and we'll drag it back over here, which will make the other wall. Remember, you don't have to do it perfectly. If you want to though, you zoom in here and you can right click on the vertices and actually line it up just perfectly, and that's good enough, whatever. So we have those sides, and don't worry about any overhang on the CSG. It's not a big deal unless you're building something outside, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. I'll drag over to this side. I think that is it. Yeah, that's close enough. So there we go, we have our room. The only thing is, if you go into unlit mode, you go in here and there's nothing here. The reason for that is, of course, you have to rebuild the geometry. So there we go, we have our simple room. It's really nothing much at all. I'll talk to you guys about more complex BSP later, but really BSP is very underused now. The only thing you really need it for is the floor and walls. So I would only worry about making basic shapes for now for Machinima. So that's pretty much one way of making it. Another simpler way, if you want to make just a square, is you can come out here with the builder brush. There's actually two other ways. I'll just explain them both quick. They can be a little more difficult though if you want to make them more complex and you want to edit them differently. So you make a random box, and what you can do is you hit additive and then use the uniform scaling to scale it down a tiny bit, and you hit subtractive. So there you have another room. That one actually looks a little better. Why didn't I just do that? Who knows? And then there's actually a third way. What we'll do is drag it over here randomly, and we'll hit the right click on the cube here, and you can actually make it hollow. And build. Hit CSG add, and as you can see, it built a hollow box. And all that, don't worry about like the size of the squares on there. That's just because I was using scaling, and you can mess with the texture scaling later. That's just the default texture or material that they use, so don't worry about that. So that's pretty much how you make any kind of basic room or box, if that's all you want to do. It gets a little more complicated later on when we start working with geometry mode, and I will definitely explain that. And I'm going to leave the video off on this right now. So build a box, build other boxes, different shaped rooms, just with what I've showed you for now. And when we come back, I'll start detailing the interior and making it look a little more pretty. So and then we'll light it up and stuff. Yeah, I forgot about that too. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.